መንፈስ ቅዱስ አሐዱ አምላክ አሜን። በቅድስት ሥላሴ እንዘአምን ወትማጸን ከሰይጣን በዛቲ ቅድስት ቤተክርስቲያን በይእቲ ስሜ ማርያም ሰበላለ ማለት አቤቱ እናመሰግንሃለን እናከብርሃለን። አቤቱ እንገዛልሃለን ቅዱስ ስምህንም እናመሰግናለን። የአማልክት አምላክ ጌታችን ንጉሥ የምትሆን ለአንተ እንገዛ ዘንድ ስምህንም እንጠራ ዘንድ ይህችን ሰዓት ፈቅደህልን እናመሰግንሃለን። በመካከላችን ተገኝተህ ቅዱስ ቃልህን እንድትመግበን ፈቃድህንም መፈጸም እንድታስተምረን አይነ ልቦናችንን አብርተህ መንገድህን እንድትመራ ለመምህራችንም ብዙ መንፈስህን ልከህ በረድኤት በበረከት ጸጋና ጥበብን ማስተዋልን አድለህ ለእኛም የምናፈራውን ፍሬ እንድታስተምረን ቅዱስ ፈቃድ ይሆንልን። ከስም ሁሉ በሚበልጥ ስምህን እንማጸንሃለን። በእናትህ አማላጅነት በቅዱሳን ጸሎት እንጠራሃለን። አባታችን ሆይ በሰማያት ስምህ ይቀደስ፣ መንግሥትህ ትምጣ፣ ፈቃድህ በሰማይ እንደሆነች እንዲሁም በምድር ትሁን። በደላችንን ይቅር በለን እኛም የበደልነውን ይቅር እንደምንል፣ አቤቱ ወደ ፈተናም አታግባን ከክፉ ሁሉ አድነን እንጂ መንግሥት ያንተ ናትና ኃይል፣ ክብር፣ ምስጋና ለዘላለሙ አሜን። ጌታችን ቅድስት ድንግል ማርያም ሆይ በመልአኩ በቅዱስ ገብርኤል ሰላምታ ሰላም እንልሻለን። በሐሳብሽ ድንግል ነሽ፣ በሥጋሽም ድንግል ነሽ። የአሸናፊ እግዚአብሔር እናት ሆይ ሰላምታ ላንቺ ይገባሻል። ከሴቶች ሁሉ ተለይተሽ አንቺ የተባረክሽ ነሽ፣ የማኅፀንሽ ፍሬ የተባረከ ነው። ጸጋን የተመላሽ ድንግል ሆይ ደስ ይበልሽ፣ ልዑል እግዚአብሔር ከአንቺ ጋር ነውና የተወደደው ልጅሽ ከጌታችን ከመድኃኒታችን ከኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ ዘንድ ይቅርታን ምሕረትን ለምኝልን ኃጢአታችንን ያስተሰርይልን ዘንድ ለዘላለሙ አሜን። ተወቃቴ ንስሐ ሠራዬ ኃጢአት ወደምሳሴ ሐሳብ ፍሬ ንስሐ ኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ ሠራዬ ኃጢአቴ ወኃጢአተ ኩሉ ሕዝብ ከስናውቅ በድፍረት ሳናውቅ በስተት ማለት የተሰራ መስራት እግዚአብሔር ይፍታ። እግዚአብሔር ይባርክልን።
እቱን ይባርኩን።
መላከ ፀሐይ መቀጠል ይችላሉ። እንግዲህ ያው
እሺ እግዚአብሔር ያክብርልኝ። እንዴት ናችሁ ሁላችሁም? Hello everyone. So I am happy to meet you again with this kind of capacity. So we are really happy to talk about our church, right? So this is really a blessing. And I'm really grateful for the Mahavira ቅዱሳን Esdros Theological Seminary for this opportunity. So I would like to thank everyone, the organizers and the participants as well. I hope I think every attendant here is the same with the previous, I think. So no newcomer is in the course. Is there anyone, Cassis? I think the same, yeah?
Yes, we didn't admit anyone.
Okay, so I think no need to introduce again and again. So this is the thing. Well, I just drafted.
One thing maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please go ahead, Cassis.
Deacon Fasaha is elected as chairman for the apostolic service, and he will be also part of the organizers in the future, but we'll see.
Okay. Deacon Fasaha. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. So it's good to know. So is Diakon Irga around still in the system? I mean, in the service? Yes.
Yes, he will be a board member, and Deacon Fasaha will be the head of the
this service.
Apostolic service. But still, I am
the chairperson for the seminary.
One of the board. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, this is good to know. So I just drafted the course, as you can imagine, is a very broad subject. The title, as you can see, is the history of Ethiopian Orthodox Church, but it must be just a brief introduction. It's not the whole history, you can imagine. So let alone with these 10 hours or so, okay? You know, in a year or 2 years course, it's really hard to limit all of this broad history of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So it is vast, but I think for the sake of our understanding, we can abbreviate the name, the course of the name, either EOTC or History of Ethiopian Orthodox History, EOTC, whatever. So I think this is a good thing which I would like to remind. Okay, having said this, you know, this is a course title, I mean the course objective which I would like to focus. The course History of Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church aims to briefly introduce the broad history of the church and to portray the light, how the church plays a prominent role in making Ethiopia. So this is a course objective. So what's the course objective? To get acquainted with the Ethiopian Orthodox Church history and to see how the church contributes for the make of Ethiopia as a country. So this is the course objective. Expected outcomes. These are, I think these 5-6 pointers can be listed as expected outcomes. After the successful completion, oh, not competition, completion. Sorry, completion of, you know, I didn't even get time to completion. I didn't even get to reread my draft because I was really busy. I apologize for that. So after the successful completion of the course, students will be able to what? To explain major events of the Ethiopian church. No, there are major events. For example, the event of the Zagwe dynasty, the Zagwe time, the Gundrian time, the Axumite time. You know, there are different events where the Church of Ethiopia ought to go through. So students are able to what? Explain the major events of the Ethiopian church. Then another outcome is expected to narrate major historical facts of the country. So in discussing the Ethiopian Orthodox Church history, it is able to know historical facts of the country as well, of Ethiopia as well. So the one who studies Ethiopian church history means he will, or definitely he or she will study the Ethiopian history as well, parallelly, almost similar phases. Another point must be to portray prominent challenges the church faced and the mechanisms taken. The mechanisms means the, you know, the solutions taken by the church. Another important point is to list core roles and contributions of the church to the country. So this is very important to know, and every one of us should know after the completion of the course. So we must list many or core points, core roles and contributions of our church that contribute to the country, to Ethiopia. One point is to discuss the major canons and traditions of the faith or the church. So this is a very expected one. And the last point to mention, so after the completion of this course, the students will be able to know the current situation of the church and to ask oneself what to contribute. You know, what should I do? እኔ ምን ላድርግ ብሎ እንዲጠይቅ ያደርጋል አንድ ሰው ትምህርቱን ከተማረ በኋላ። You know, it's not, you know, one very major thing which every student of history should ask himself or herself is what? After getting the lessons, you know, we must take a note for ourselves and we must ask ourselves. That's a major point of the course. Unless we ask ourselves, what's my contribution? No, it's really in vain. So it's really very important to know this. So this is very good and very important. So current situation of the church and to ask oneself what to contribute is very important. So these are the expected outcomes. So these are the major introductory parts. So coming to the course outline, I have drafted about 9 chapters or 9 sections. The first one is about ancient history of the church. You know, that's very important and we need to discuss it. The second one is Christianity during the Axumite Empire. The third one is destruction by Gudit and the Zagwe dynasty. The fourth one is the restoration of the Solomonic dynasty. The fifth one is the revival of monasticism in church schools. The sixth chapter is a major church challenges during the 16th through the 18th centuries. The seventh section is entitled the Ethiopian church during 18th through 20th century. The eighth point or the 8th chapter will be on the Ethiopian church autonomy. The Ethiopian church autonomy, autocephalous nature of the church. And the final point will be Ethiopian church and foreign relations or activities. So to give emphasis to see the detailed points under the first section, we will discuss, you know, the pre-Christian Ethiopia. We'll try to see very briefly, because, you know, Ethiopia is a country. Ethiopia is a country as a state, and Ethiopian church is not a church just a started phase accepting by Christianity or what do you call it? Christianity or New Testament. But before New Testament, before baptism, before Christianity, there was a phase in Ethiopia that's called the phase of one or monotheism. So Ethiopia is a faithful country, right? So that is very important, and we must know that the pre-Christian Ethiopia. Pre-Christian Ethiopia means there is faith, but that not before Christianity there was faith. So that's very important, and we discuss some points under that. And under this, the first section, we are going to discuss about some introductory remarks, how Christianity or Christian faith was introduced to the country. So we'll discuss this. So the first chapter is entitled or focused on the ancient history of the church. That's the very basic one. In the second part, we'll see Christianity during the Axumite Empire. As you all know, Christianity was introduced during the Axumite era, the Axumite Empire, the Axumite time. But during that Christian or Axumite time, there are different phases. Of course, we know that the Christianity was introduced by Bacchus, or the eunuch of the Queen Candace, that's called the Jandarabao. But after that, you know, Christianity was, you know, flourished and become state religion by the very useful contribution thanks to the efforts of Abba Salama from ancient. So we'll see Abba Salama's contribution. Then we'll discuss under Axumite time, Axumite Christianity, you know, the efforts of 9 saints or the Kudusan are very, very important. As you all know, we are really very proud of to discuss remarks about the Saint Yared and the church hymnody, Zema. And the last point under this section is to see some remarks how Christianity was spread, not only limited to the Axumite Empire, but outside Ethiopia, to the extent of the Southern Arabia. So we'll see some remarks on that time. In the third chapter, we'll see how destruction by Gudit was happened. That was really disastrous situation. And the Zagwe dynasty. So the Dark Age, it's called the Dark Age, and the period of conflict there was, you know, we must discuss that. You know, we must discuss also the end of the Axumite time, then the destruction of by Gudit, and we see, you know, the immediate dynasty next to Axumite civilization is the Zagwe dynasty, or the Zagwe civilization. So we'll discuss on that. As a fourth point, we'll see how you know, Solomonic dynasty was restored. After Yikuno Amlak in 1270, the church and the state, become or reappear in the different scenario. So we'll see that's a very important part of Ethiopian history and Ethiopian church history. So the restoration of Solomonic dynasty is very important in Ethiopian history as well as the Ethiopian church history. During that time, the church during the Solomonic dynasty, we'll see an overview, right? There are lots of various things happened during this time, but we'll focus on that. So I gave the title, an overview. Then the church during the Gundarian time, I think we're going to discuss some very few points about the Gundarian time, the Gundarian period. The fifth point is a revival of monasticism in the church schools. So revival of monasticism in church. Yes, it's okay, no worries, but try to mute, right? Yes, thank you very much. So revival of monasticism and the church schools this is how the Church of Ethiopia become, very, very important and can continue its service. Thanks to the monastic fathers, so the Ethiopian church come up with another capacity so that the monasteries were there, the monasteries were flourished. Monasteries are not started this time. We already know that the 9th century already began the monasticism in Ethiopia, but during the 13th and 14th century after the Solomonic dynasty, monastics were reappeared, flourished all over Ethiopia from south to north, from north to south. Then the very, very important contribution of the church and the very good mechanism to survive. One of the core reasons to survive is the church schools. So these are during this time, so we'll see that. And another point, as we see, the major church challenges raised with the 16th, 17th, 18th century. So these are really very important. As you all know, Grand Ahmed's invasion happened in the 16th century, and disastrous things were happened. It is really immense. It was very difficult to mention even. It lasts strong about 16 or 15 years, but it's just vanished every glory of the church, every item, right? Burned the church icon, the churches, monasteries, churches, buildings, parchments, Brana Masaf, curse, every kind of Christian antiquity was destroyed by Grand Ahmed. So the glorious things were really, really just this was really disastrous. The Grand Ahmed's invasion was there. I just used the term invasion intentionally. Right? It's not just a simple civil war, right? It's really war. He just come from outside somewhere, so he just invaded Ethiopia. So that was really, really difficult. So that's really a very drastic situation. Another very important thing which we must know during the one major challenge is, the coming of the missionaries. The coming of the missionaries, the coming of the Jesuit missionaries, then the later European missionaries. I gave those activities as these ones, as you can see, evangelizing the evangelized. So this is a very good title, and it explains how the thing was happened. We Ethiopian Christians already evangelized since the beginning of the Christianity, before many countries were, before Europe, Ethiopia was evangelized already. The Ethiopian state is a Christian state since the 4th century officially, but faith was already there since the 1st century. But, the missionaries came in the 18th century and they would like to evangelize us. That's force. And, 6th and 7th century, these Jesuit missionaries they came to Ethiopia and they just would like to give us, you know, Ethiopian Christianity is more of Jewish influence. አይሁዳዊነት ጠባይ ያለው so we need to give it a new flourishment, right? So they said that, so I gave this title, evangelizing the evangelized. So this is already there is a very famous article. I will going to give you that article, so you will be ready. So we'll see these major challenges in this area. The challenge still continues. So the church during the era of princes, the religious controversies, the church during the modern era is really would like to discuss another. And the eighth point, I think the very important point, that's called the church autonomy, right? The Ethiopian Orthodox Church is autonomous church. It's called in Greek autocephalous church, right? You know, autonomous church, but for historical reasons, the Ethiopian church was under the jurisdiction of the Coptic until the 1959. So there was really no struggle, power struggle between the Egyptians and the Ethiopians. The Egyptians were unhappy to allow Ethiopian fathers to be ordained, as you all know. So there is a very good struggle. So finally, it took us more than 1,600 or 1,600 years to appoint our own bishops. Sorry for this. Finally, we got our own bishops in the 20th century, and later in the Holy Synod of Ethiopian Church was, you know, organized after long years of time. So we'll see that Holy Synod story, and we'll see the current church administration of the Ethiopian Church. So we'll see that. The final chapter will be the Ethiopian Church and the foreign relations and activities. So in this regard, we're going to see how Ethiopian churches and monasteries are just organizing here in Ethiopia and outside Ethiopia. Outside Ethiopia, we called the church in the diaspora, right? In the diaspora. So of course, the Jerusalem church is the Jerusalem monasteries is also under diaspora, but since it has a very unique space in Ethiopian church history, in Ethiopian history, I just make it separate to discuss it, right? So the Jerusalem monasteries, you know, we are really proud, thanks to our forefathers. You know, Ethiopia has a long story with in relation with since the time of Queen Sheba in the 10th century BC, during the time of King Solomon. So Ethiopia and Israelites have, you know, relation. So for that reason, King Solomon gave or donated land and acquisitions for Ethiopian queen. Then Ethiopia has heritage in that holy land. So that was since the time of, even before the coming of Christ. After Christ has come, Ethiopians who had land during, even they had the land acquisition, and you know, there are monasteries and churches in Holy Land, in Jerusalem, in Israel as well. So we'll see that very briefly, and finally we'll have an overview how the Ethiopian church serving in the diaspora, on the overseas, in Africa, in Middle East and in Europe and in the United States, in, you know, Australia, Caribbean, and in the overseas, in the other cities. So we'll see very briefly these ones. So altogether 9 chapters are dedicated for this. So today I think I will just limit myself for this, and we're going to give this note. Okay, how do we approach? So the students are expected to this. As you can see, attendance is mandatory. At least 85% or above is expected for everyone. So this is the duty of our brother Deacon Fisa, the coordinator anyway, on the Casis Jesus. So this is really serious. So I encourage you to attend the class. The students should actively participate in the class, expected to attempt all quizzes and exams timely. Note, don't miss any time, right? Don't miss any quiz, don't miss any. So you should attempt. I know some of you try to your time, but some of you are just, for various reasons, you just skip this. So it's not allowed. So you are expected to attempt all quizzes. Okay, students should submit assignments on time, as usual, and they should consult all the given materials. So, as you all know, we are in history class. For history, you need to be rich in materials. You need to rich in facts. You need to consult. So you are. I'll give you very simple, very few remarks, but I give you at least very compulsory reading materials, and you should read this. I will try to share some of them if I have the soft copy, but if not, I think you need to find anywhere, so you need to read. What are the materials? These are the course materials. So uniquely, I would like to attach also the pictures, because you should introduce the materials even with the picture. So the first one, a publication of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the Church of Ethiopia, Panorama of History and Spiritual Life, Addis Ababa, 970, the first edition, 1997 in second edition. So this is the first book. So this is the first book. So I would like to give you, and I think, okay, where is that? Okay, I have it anyway, but every one of you should have this book, and I strongly recommend you to have this. This is very important. The second book is this one. I'm Rond Magenyo and Joachim Motovu. They wrote it in 1970s, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, right? Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian Orthodox Mission in 1970s. So this book is really, really very important and very informative. Another very, very profound book, which I strongly recommend you, is the different books of Professor Lule Melaku's book. In this outline, I just mentioned, out of his many historical books, I just mentioned the 2 volumes, right? Lule Melaku, History of Ethiopian Orthodox Church, Part 1, 2008, Part 2 and 3, 2010. Okay, so this one is Part 2 and Part 3, and there is Part 1 before that. So that's good, very important to have you, and you need to read, to buy it. I think you can find it still in Ethiopia. So please order someone to buy for you and to send it. So this is very important. By the way, most books of mine are already, I had it while I was in Ethiopia, but due to extra luggage, so I was forced to leave them in Ethiopia and to come up. So I ordered this book and other books, of course, for this course. Guess what? It took me almost 1 month before this hectic situation anyway. So it's difficult this time to have the books anyway. If order even from Amazon, I think it may take unexpected time. Anyway, these books are very important. So I strongly recommend you, and I make this book of Lule Melaku's Part 2 and 3, and this book are just course materials, very important. Of course, everyone is important, but especially these 2. Another very important book, this book is የኢትዮጵያ ኦርቶዶክስ ተዋህዶ ቤተክርስቲያን እምነት ስርዓት አምልኮትና የውጭ ግንኙነት it's just bilingual ሁለቱንም ቋንቋ ይዞ ነው ያለው so the editors are አቡነ መቃሪዎስ his grace አቡነ መቃሪዎስ and etal የኢትዮጵያ ኦርቶዶክስ ተዋህዶ ቤተክርስቲያን እምነት ስርዓት አምልኮትና የውጭ ግንኙነት የኢትዮጵያ ኦርቶዶክስ ተዋህዶ church phase order of worship and ecumenical relations አዲስ አበባ ተንሳይ publication house 1996 bilingual edition so it is really important. This is by the way this is the official document what the church during the time of Abuna Paulus while he come to power to come to his throne his see so what the very good thing what Abuna Paulus gave the attention for the church is publication of this book. I found it very important, very important, so you have to have it. Okay, these two books are very fundamental for Ethiopian history. Every Ethiopian history student, reader, any Ethiopianist, or anyone who studies the Ethiopian history or Ethiopian church history should read Sirgo Abdulaziz and Tadas Tamrat's very profound books. Sirgo Abdulaziz's book is 1972. It says ancient and medieval Ethiopian history to 1270, Addis Ababa. So the book is this one. Fortunately, I have the soft copy of this, so I can share with you, by the way. And I hope I have also the soft copy of this one as well. Okay, this Tadas Tamrat. So Tadas Tamrat's Church and State. I think this is very famous and very useful book. Can you see the time? I really appreciate it, and I make always I will always to the university students, in philology, in Ethiopian studies, and others. I always appreciate how these church scholars, gave a very unique contribution for Ethiopian history. Guess what? Sirgo Abdulaziz, he studied the Ethiopian history since early time, since Axumite time until what? What is the time of his time limitation? 12 what? Sometimes please unmute yourselves, please. Please unmute yourselves. I would like to.
1217, yeah.
Thank you very much. 1217. Yeah. Guess the time of Tadas Tamrat. He began with what?
1272.
1270 and end is what? 1527. You know this 1527, what happens is the time of grime.
Right.
So, to make Ethiopian history to fully understand, everyone should not only read and finish with Sirgo, but he must continue, or she must continue with what? Reading what? Tadas Tamrat's books. Okay? And after Tadas Tamrat, there must be, this is a medieval Ethiopian history, by the way. So there is a book which is called, unfortunately, but it's an unpublished one. He was my professor, or these are my professors. And another one was, he's called Professor Meredwell Daragai. Meredwell Daragai, he is a very famous Ethiopian scholar, Ethiopian professor of Ethiopian history, medievalist nacho. He's called medievalist nacho. ከዚህ በኋላ የቱርኪሽ የእንትኑ ታሪክ ነው። what do you call it? ሊዝቦን ማናት? Portuguese, right? The Jewish missionary, the Portuguese man. So next to Tadas Tamrat continues what? Continues Meredwell Daragai. Professor Meredwell Daragai. He is the only professor of Ethiopian history, and he studied the Ethiopian history with a very useful material, with the language. He knew Portuguese language. He studied his PhD in London, in SOAS, right? But he went to Lisbon and he studied Portuguese because after the coming of grime, what happened in Ethiopian history? The Portuguese came, you know, with their missionary activities and like, and they did many things, you know, the correspondence, you know, the Alvarez, Manaman, you know, it continues until the Gondarian time. So, next to Tadas Tamrat, the work of Meridwell Daraga is very important, but unfortunately, we have his dissertation, his PhD unpublished so far. So we don't have his book, we have his PhD, but unfortunately, it's not accessible, you know, available at this format anyway. Then after Meridwell Daragai, then the modern Ethiopian history will be followed by Baharu Zawde, Professor Baharu Zawde. So we do have Baharu Zawde's, you know, different books of Ethiopian modern history, right? Modern history. So he wrote in Amharic and in English extensively. So Sergo, Tadesse, Meridwell Daragai, then Baharu Zawde. Of course, Richard Pancras is there, Professor Shiferrao is there, and many, many others. Of course, Wudut Afat and others also were there. But these are the very important ones. All these are, in one way or another, they are on modern Ethiopian history. But for the medieval Ethiopian history and for Sergio and Tadas Tamrat are very important. So I made them as a compulsory reading materials for our course, okay? So I strongly recommend every one of you to read these books. Another very important material is the Encyclopedia Ethiopica. By the way, are you aware of this? Let me please unmute yourselves and try to react on this. I strongly recommend you to read and to be aware of about Encyclopedia Ethiopica. Are you aware of this, by the way? No. Okay, so Encyclopedia Ethiopica is, you know what Encyclopedia mean. So this is published in Hamburg, Germany, in Hamburg University. And it is a 5-volume book, very, very useful material. As you see the name, it's what? It's about what? Encyclopedia about what? About Ethiopia. Ethiopia in this case is not only the country Ethiopia, but it's everything related to Ethiopia. Ethiopia signifies the language, the culture, the religion, you know, the literature, whatever. Everything related to Ethiopia is called Ethiopia. You got it? So this volume is very important, okay? So volume 1 was published in 2003. Volume 2, this one, is published in 2005. Volume 3 was published in 2007. Volume 4 in 2010. Volume 5, and the last one was in 2013, I guess, yes. So these 5 volumes. So anything in every item is just alphabetically from A to Z. Please mute yourself, Salam, from your era. Okay, thank you very much. So, well, myself and some others contribute for this encyclopedia, by the way. I have contributed about 5-6 articles in you know. So, encyclopedia has no author, by the way. The authors are hundreds and 200, 300 authors, or 70 or 80 ones. And encyclopedia ጸሐፊዎች author አይባሉም ምን ይባሉት entry writers ነው ይባላል entry. So I wrote some entries, many others wrote some other entries as well. So this is very important. So I wrote in relation with my dissertation, my Dirsana Tzion, Tawahedo Tzion, in relation with Abune Mara Christos, his biography, in relation with Magabi Sefer Selassie, in relation with Melka'a Christos, he's the Ethiopian saint on the 17th century. He was a saint, so I wrote about his biography. I wrote about St. Paul Theological College and others, so many others as well, of course, from 3, 4, 5. So this is about the Encyclopedia Ethiopica. So very prestigious writers like Richard Pancras, he is almost writing every other remark. Professor Getachew Haile, he is voluminous writer of this Encyclopedia Ethiopica. Professor, many other professors, many other prestigious writers are just wrote on this. So this is very important. I would like to read. So some articles are available online. So please Google on this title. So just read about that. So it is a publication of Encyclopedia Ethiopica. It's a publication of University of Hamburg. So that's it. So under that, volume 2, page 414 through 432 is uniquely important for our course. So I strongly recommend you to read this. Okay, these pages. If you don't know, if you don't get this access, let me know, and then I will try to scan for you, and I will give you only these portions, because these are very few pages, so you can, I think, access it online. If not, let me know so that I can share with you, right? So about Ethiopian church, so this article is written by Professor Getachew Haile and Denis Nosizin and also Chernesto and some others also, of course, jointly. So that's good. Coming to Amharic sources, I strongly recommend you to read. If you are asked to read one Amharinya Matzaf on the Ethiopian history, is what? Whom you know? Right? The famous Ethiopian historian, by the way. I really appreciate him. I didn't know him in person, but I really appreciate all his books. I think I have all his books read, and it is really good. So I strongly recommend you to read all his books. How many books he has? About 6, 7, 8. But I strongly recommend you, everyone, but especially interest with the medieval Ethiopian history, called የኢትዮጵያ ታሪክ ከአፄ ልብነ ድንግል እስከ አፄ ቴዎድሮስ መጀመሪያ እትም 1961 አራተኛ እትም 2000. So it is very important. I strongly recommend you to read all historical books of Tekle Tzadek, but especially this one is mandatory. Another very important book is your teacher, the current one, this called Neka Matzahaft. This is very important, especially for the medieval Ethiopian history. Of course, it has Axumite history, literature, and this chapter, this book is very important. I think with this, which chapter it is. Let me check. I think yes. Yeah, it has very important it is very useful for second chapter, fourth, and the fifth chapter. Fifth chapter is almost, this book is very important for the fifth chapter. So you have to read Neka Matzahaft. So that's, I think, it gives you some very important things, I guess. Another very important book and material is what? የኢትዮጵያ ኦርቶዶክስ ተዋሕዶ ቤተክርስቲያን ታሪክ ከልደተ ክርስቶስ እስከ እስራሚት እስከ 2000 አዲስ አበባ, published by the Holy Synod, right? Abuna Garima and others. So you need to read this book. I think you must have this book. You must have this book. So you have to know, and you have to read, find this book, and you have to find this. So finally, you get the very important, very points. So many things are there, many things. Zema, Tariq, Izana, Zetayin Kudusan, Kudus Yared, so it's really very, very voluminous and very huge book. So I strongly recommend you to read that. Another very important resource is what? The very prestigious book and a very famous book. And I think almost every one of you here in this course, I guess you, in one way or another, while you are at Sunday school or whatever, you must have read this book called, finally, what? The book of Abuna Gorgorios, which is called entitled the Ethiopian Beteksyan Tarik 19 what? Okay. መጀመሪያ 1974 ታተመ። የመጨረሻውና ሁለተኛው እትም 1986 after his days, I think his demise. So the book was published for the second time. I am not sure whether ማህበረ ቅዱሳን has a copyright to publish this, or I don't know, or his family's in a way. So this is very important, and I think you must have this book. I believe, and I think soft copy of this book is available online. So I think you can find this book anyway. So these are for today. Thank you for listening. I'm done.
አለ ህይወት ያሰማልን በእድሜ በጸጋ ይጠብቅልን።